Hello everyone and welcome to another virtual pet video. This time I'm going to be talking about the absolutely weirdest Digimon virtual pet, and that is, of course, the Digimon Pendulum Cycle. So yes, I have covered this before, but I just thought because it's been over a year since I started creating virtual pet videos on YouTube, and my very first video was about the Digimon Pendulum Cycle. So I kind of wanted to release this video originally back on the first anniversary of when I sort of started doing virtual pet videos, so the anniversary of that very first Digimon Pendulum Cycle video, but I kind of got busy with moving, and then I had other ideas that I wanted to do for videos, and then the VB came out, so I kind of pushed it on the back burner, but I thought I may as well start talking about it now. So since that first video, I've upgraded my setup with something like an external microphone when I do videos using my phone, and I use a light box now, as well as I'm just putting more effort in general into my videos. I'm planning them a bit more. I'm covering a different range of things as well, as not just like this is what I'm raising every day. And I've also started using, as you can probably tell from this video, my webcam, which I don't think I had at the start of... No, I think I did have it at the start of the videos because I needed it for work. But anyway, so I started with my webcam and obviously the green screen behind me, and I have a light right there just in front of my eyes. So that makes it looked a little bit better. Just a little bit though. It does sort of make my face look weird though. Anyway, so yeah, a bunch of new things were added. I've got a smaller light box next to my computer. I've got the big one that I use for my main virtual pet videos. But anyway, a lot's changed. So following my initial Pendulum Cycle video, I've actually discovered more evolutions, and I've filled out my growth chart a bit, which basically everything I talk about will be actually linked in a blog post that I did a few months ago, which I'll link in the description. So anything you want to check out on that blog post. And so yeah, I also did a blog post a few months ago, which was sort of like more of a Pendulum Cycle guide rather than my usual review blog post that I make. So that's also been there. And basically, with the increase in video quality and the amount of details I currently know about this virtual pet, I kind of thought it was about time that I remake and sort of talk about this virtual pet again with all this new information, and as well as all this new quality that I've put into these videos, which maybe it's still not a lot, but it's a little bit more than what I had before. So it's time to revisit this absolutely weird and wild virtual pet from Bandai Asia. How exciting for us! So, the Digimon Pendulum Cycle was released by Bandai Asia in Southeast Asia and Australia, and this was in the early 2000s, and it was a continuation of the Digital Monster series, but actually used the roster from the Digimon Pendulum. We also obviously have the version 6 of the DMOG, which was only released in Australia and I think Southeast Asia as well, and this one was a continuation from the Pendulum series, but with the DMOG mechanics, and it didn't have Jogress or Mega Evolutions. It only went up to Perfect, like the other DMOGs. However, starting from version 7, the virtual pet actually introduced completely new and different mechanics, primarily the fact that the Digimon reverts to child at bedtime each day, and also evolve all the way to Super Ultimate basically by early afternoon. And also it had this kind of shape, so I've got my version 10, the version 7, the version 8, and the version 9. So it came out with 4 versions. So 4 versions including the version 7, 8, 9, and 10. And each version contained the roster for a different Digimon Pendulum Cycle version. So version 7 was the first version of the Pendulums, the second version of the Pendulum. The first version was the version 6, which is a DMOG. But yeah, so version 7 was Deep Saver, so that's version 2 of the Pendulum series. Version 8 was Nightmare Soldiers, which was the version 3. Windows 9? That's weird. Crossing over to my day job. So version 9, not Windows 9, was the Wind Guardians, and I think that might be where the wind part came from in Windows. I was like, Wind Guardians, Windows, there we are. No, Wind Guardians, which is the version 4 of the Pendulum, and then we had version 10 of the Pendulum Cycle, which was version 5 of the Pendulum, which was the Metal Empire version. The only version not to get released in either Digital Monster or Pendulum Cycle format was the version 0, which was the Virus Busters version. There were a few features that carried over from the original Pendulum series that weren't in the DMOG series, like Jogress mechanics. so you could Jogress. However, on the cycle, it made it even easier. So every Digimon that could Jogress with any Digimon that could Jogress. The only thing that took anything into account in Jogressing was the type of the Digimon, so be it Data, Vaccine, or Virus. So you could Jogress an Ultimate or a Mega with an adult. So it didn't have to match up with the same level. It just had to be the certain type. So that's the attribute. So that's pretty easy. It means that you can really Jogress with anything, except for if the Digimon can't Jogress, obviously. And besides the rapid evolution, which I mentioned earlier, the cycle also introduced a really kind of weird evolution mechanic, and that's weight, which it was kind of weird. I remember when I was first researching the cycle back in the year 2015, so 6 years ago now, I didn't want to accept at first that it was weight-based in terms of certain ranges evolved to certain different Digimon. That was weird. But yeah, so they introduced weight as a requirement. So this means that the Digimon will only evolve if their weight falls under a certain range. So some Digimon have the evolution of like 50 pounds to 70 pounds, and others have like 40 to 45. It's really weird. There's got certain ranges, and I kind of go over this a lot in my spreadsheet, which has all the shake requirements as well as it has the evolutions requirements for a different Digimon. If you look at this spreadsheet, I'm still kind of filling it out a bit. There's still a few gaps because I haven't been able to get all the evolutions or specify what the particular ranges are, but I've sort of been expanding on that in the last, I think I've had that spreadsheet for about a year or so since my first video on this. But anyway, another fairly important evolution requirement, and this is something I wasn't aware of in my initial video, this is kind of like a newish requirement that I started testing after that video, was the overfeed mechanic. Now, some evolutions only occur if you overfeed a few times, and this means that you feed the Digimon until it refuses to eat anymore, and every time it refuses to eat, it's 1. So when you overfeed a certain amount of times, you also get more evolutions, and that really helped me be able to include a lot more evolutions in my spreadsheet. More of these sort of overfeeding evolutions. So it unlocked an extra layer of evolution requirements that I had to look through. And I found that there are a lot more evolutions that are available in any other virtual pet. It feels like every Digimon has like 5 evolutions that it can evolve into, and also Jogress ones. It's pretty nuts. So this requirement of overfeeding wasn't really new to Digimon Virtual Pets, so it's been in the original Digimon, but it wasn't like present in the Pendulum series, so I originally overlooked it as a requirement. However, this finding of overfeeding actually meant that I could come to the realization that I wasn't getting Gomamon on my version 7 because I wasn't overfeeding the baby. So if you overfeed the baby, you get Gomamon, which I guess kind of actually makes sense because you get a seal and it's very fat. I don't know, it kind of makes sense, but I was having a really hard time getting Gomamon at all on the version 7, which is basically, like, I'll get more to why this version 7 is a weird one later on in the video. Anyway, so yeah, that was really cool, and a lot of Digimon I wasn't able to get evolve past perfect because I couldn't get them to evolve, so I was just overfeeding them, and then all of a sudden at 70 pounds, they would evolve, and usually with around 3 overfeeds, sometimes 2. But yeah, that was pretty cool, realizing that there was an extra evolution requirement. So the main evolution requirements are care, overfeeding, and weight. So 2 of those are kind of normal, and then there's the weight one, which is fairly unique. I know we do see the weight evolution requirement become relevant in the Digimon Twins, but that's more to get Burpmon, not to evolve into a different Digimon, and Burpmon's more of a sickness than an actual other Digimon, because as soon as you drop under that weight, you get your original Digimon back from Burpmon. But anyway, so speaking of the version 7 being weird, which I just did before, I noticed the version 7 actually has some of its own weirdness, which is saying a lot because all of them are very weird. Like the weight range evolution thing, that's very weird to me, but the version 7 honestly feels like a beta version of the Digimon Pendulum Cycle. So there's a few differences, like the time to evolve to Baby 2 to Rookie is 2 hours, whereas with the other 3 versions, it's only 1 hour. So you I guess it kind of makes sense, because overfeeding, you wouldn't be able to overfeed your Digimon 3 times in an hour, but 2 hours is a lot more doable, so that I guess that kind of makes sense. Now I know about the overfeeding mechanic for Gomamon. And so yeah, that kind of makes sense. And then some Digimon appear to only have bad care evolutions. So another thing I struggled with was whenever I got Crabmon as a child for the Pendulum Cycle, I was actually struggling to get any evolutions. And that's because I was taking good care, because I usually typically go for good care evolutions when I first start working out what evolutions a Digimon can have. But Crabmon, I just could not get to evolve. I tried lots of different things, like training it lots and battling it lots, but I couldn't get Crabmon to evolve. So then I started with overfeeding and bad care evolutions, and overfed bad care at the same time, and I was actually able to get it to evolve more when I had those bad care. And now I've actually found quite a few evolutions from Crabmon with various weight differences that evolve only with bad care, but I haven't found any with good care. So that feels kind of weird, that there's a Digimon that just evolves with bad care. That's kind of weird to me. Like, it feels like, again, that the version 7 was a beta version of the Pendulum Cycle. It feels a little bit different. In addition, another difference is that the amount of weight lost from different actions is slightly different. Like, for example, a Mega Hit, which usually reduces your Digimon weight to by 4 pounds on the other versions. On the version 7, it's 3 pounds, which feels weird. It feels like a weird change to make, but it feels better when it's 4 pounds, because it's more, but also, I don't know, it just feels more rounded because it's an even number. I don't know. And so, yeah, there's a few differences like that where it loses 1 pound less than any of the other versions for the similar action. And I also noticed that the evolution requirements seem to be a little less forgiving. Rather than a weight range, it feels like evolution only occurs at specific weights. Not to mention, the evolution timer seems to check for evolutions less often than the other 3 versions. And when I say evolution timer, I also kind of mean, like, some evolutions, like, it seems to check every few minutes. And then I've also noticed that if you do the perfect training twice, that seems to also trigger evolution. So it feels like the checks for evolution requirements occur more often on the versions 8, 9, and 10. And then the version 7, I feel like I could be at the exact right requirement, and then it just doesn't evolve until, like, maybe half an hour of being on that requirement. It's a little bit weird. So it feels like evolution occurs less on the version 7, which means that I've been able to achieve less evolutions on that because it kind of happens less. And I also feel like in general, the Digimon on the version 7 evolve to less Digimon than on the other versions, but that could just be because I haven't found the requirements yet. Maybe they need super specific weights, because as with the other versions, they have weight ranges. The version 7 seems to have, like, specific weights, like, not really a range, but like 55, 57, 59, not anything in between. Or maybe I've just been unlucky and it hasn't checked for the evolution. So the version 7, even though it's the most common one you can find popping up on eBay, I think I would not recommend it because it is kind of annoying. Even if you do have one, you can check out my evolution guide. Again, it's linked in the description in the blog post, but I wouldn't really recommend it just because it's a little bit more annoying than the other versions. Something else I've noticed is the shake counts are a lot higher on the version 7. For example, like, you might need a shake count of like 40, and then on the other ones, the lowest shake count might be 18. It just feels like it's that the version 7 was a beta that they released and then realized the problems, but then released these ones. And having said that, I feel like the version 8 also feels like a second beta, because I feel like the 9 and 10 have they're the best ones in terms of, I feel like I have the least amount of time struggling with these two. And you can probably tell if you do look at the evolution spreadsheet, is that I've got more information on these two, mainly because they are easier to evolve. But the version The version 9's still okay, it's just that there's a few more gaps on the version 9 than on the version 8 rather than the version 9 and 10, which I have quite a lot of Digimon on. But also, I just prefer Metal Empire and Wind Guardians to the other ones, even though I love the whole roster. So there's also the addition of the Super Ultimates, so you can Jogress your Ultimate or Mega rather into a different Digimon by Jogressing, and this means that you can get Digimon that don't actually appear on any of the pendulums, so they've added a bunch more Digimon. So we have like the ancient Digimon, we have Valkyriemon, which is really cool on the Wind Guardians one, because Valkyriemon didn't actually appear on the Virtual Pet until this year, or the end of last year rather, with the Digimon Pendulum Z. So that was a fairly cool addition. And it's something that, like, there's some pretty cool Digimon on these rosters. Like, we've got Veliel Vamdemon, we've got Moon Millenniumon, which is kind of cool to see. Even though he's on, like, he's on, for some reason, the Deep Savers one. Which also, we've got the Digimon on the outside of the version 8, which is another reason why I feel like it feels like a beta. And these Digimon are all actually not appearing on this one. They appear on this one, because if you notice, they've got more or less the same design shell. So they've got Digimon in big text here, and then we've got the sprites on the top and on the bottom of the screen. And yeah, those don't actually appear on the version 8. They're actually all Deep Saver Digimon, which is kind of weird. And then obviously we've got the version 9 and 10, which don't have sprites, and the Digimon logo has actually moved to the other side of the screen, and it's in smaller text. So just a few little differences like that. And I know I've reviewed them before, but would I recommend them? It's a really hard one. If you like the fact that they're very quick and you only really have to have them running in one day to get all the way to Super Ultimate, I would recommend them. If you want a Digimon that has a complete evolution chart, I would probably not recommend them. However, the evolutions that I've put together in my spreadsheet are definitely better than what we had before. Like, when I first got them in 2015, there was no information, no evolution requirements. They were like these are the Digimon we think are on it. But yeah, it's a weird one, so that's sort of all there is to say. There's also training, which differs on each version, which is kind of cool, even though it's all basically the same. You just shake to it, and again, that's also in the spreadsheets. There's Jogressing, which if you only have one Pendulum Cycle, I advise getting a decom, because... Oh, here's the other weird thing. When I said about Jogressing that you can Jogress with any level, as long as it's a certain attribute, that means that there are if you have a decom, you only need one code for each attribute, because it looks at the attribute rather than the Digimon or the level it's Jogressing with. So you'll always get a certain Digimon depending on the attribute. That's fairly nifty. Also, I guess you could say it's lazy in terms of the programming, because that means that there's a lot less Jogresses you need to code in there, and obviously a lot less checks that you need to do. Another thing is that it is compatible with the D-Spirit, D-Gather, and D-Terminal toys, in that you can go to the scan option, scan them, and then read about the Digimon on those analyzer type devices. And that's fairly cool. But yeah, that's basically all I have to say about the Pendulum Cycle. Again, if you want more information, I wrote a fairly lengthy guide a few months ago. I think that was January. So, and I'll link that in the description, where I have also my my spreadsheet, which has compiled all the shake counts as well as the evolution requirements. And while I'm on the topic of that spreadsheet, they've also had, when you're Jogressing, it also requires you to shake before you Jogress, and you need to shake to a perfect count. So you kind of also need to find that count if you want to have a successful Jogress. So you have to shake, 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 and that's something that's not really in any of the other devices that have Jogressing. You kind of just Jogress. So that's something that's a little bit weird. But yeah, this is definitely the weirdest Digimon Virtual Pet to me, but I kind of like it. Like, I kind of have a love-hate relationship with the cycle. I hate it because I feel like the evolution requirements are contrived, but I also love it because I feel kind of some, like, adoration for it, but only because I've spent so long trying to work out the evolution requirements. I'm not running any of these anytime soon, that's why they're all off. because I consistently run all 4 of them whenever I do, and then I kind of get burnt out as soon as I can't get it to evolve to a new evolution. I'm also working on full evolution charts, much in the way that we have for all the other versions, but I'll put some on the screen because they are very much like spaghetti because of how weird the evolutions are, and some Digimon evolve to so many different Digimon. It's kind of pointing arrows everywhere. But yeah, that's basically all I have on the Pendulum Cycle. If you want to know more, I've done a lot of videos on the Pendulum Cycle before, and of course there's the blog post, which will be linked in the description, unless I forget, and then just make a comment and remind me, and then I'll add it. But anyway, so thanks for watching this video, and I hope it was informative. And if you have a Digimon virtual pet that you think is even weirder, please let me know. But I think you'd be pretty stressed to find a weirder virtual pet. Bandai Asia, what were you thinking? But anyway, so thanks for watching this video, and I will see you on the next one. Bye!